Breaking now. Jay-Z's untouchable empire just cracked wide open. A court greenlit the one move he allegedly spent decades avoiding. A hidden song, a DNA demand, and a July 18 deadline that could destroy everything. The internet is calling this his most dangerous moment ever. For years, this story lived in whispers, dismissed, buried under lawyers and ironclad silence. But now, the silence is shattering. A judge reportedly ordered Jay-Z to respond by July 18 in a paternity case that's been haunting him since the early 90s. A 32-year-old man claims Jay is his biological father, and this time, the court isn't backing down. Insiders say this deadline could force the DNA test Jay allegedly fought against for over a decade. And 50 Cent? He's already fanning the flames online. If this breaks, hip-hop history will never look the same again. Let me break this down because what's happening right now is absolutely insane. A man in his early 30s has been publicly claiming for years that Jay-Z is his biological father. And it's not just some random accusation thrown around for clout. This dude has receipts, or at least he claims he does. According to reports circulating online and court documents that allegedly surfaced, this man's late mother left behind a signed statement. A statement supporting the claim that Jay-Z fathered her child back in the early 1990s, when Hov was still grinding, still hungry, still moving through different cities trying to make it. Think about that timeline. This was before Reasonable Doubt, before the Empire, before Beyonce, before the billion-dollar brand. And here's where it gets even crazier. A judge has reportedly allowed this case to move forward after years of delays. Years. We're talking about a legal battle that's been stalled, pushed back, jurisdiction hopped, and buried in paperwork for over a decade. But now, the system is saying, nah, not this time, you gotta respond. The deadline? July 18. That's not just some arbitrary date. That's a court-ordered response window. And folks online are already marking their calendars because they know what this means. If Jay-Z doesn't respond, if he tries to dodge again, if his legal team pulls another delay tactic, the optics alone could be catastrophic. But here's the kicker. The question everyone's asking isn't even, is it true anymore? It's this. If it's not true, why fight this hard? Why spend a decade allegedly resisting a simple DNA test? A test that could shut this whole thing down in 48 hours. One swab, one lab, one result. Case closed. But that hasn't happened, and fans are connecting dots that paint a very uncomfortable picture. Let's talk about what's actually on the table here. The accuser says another man was originally listed on his birth certificate, but then that man took a DNA test. And guess what? He wasn't the father. So the name got removed. Now you've got a kid with no listed father, a mother who allegedly had close contact with Jay-Z during the exact time frame, and a signed statement that reportedly points directly at Hov. And the internet, they're treating this like the biggest cold case in hip-hop history. Online detectives went full CSI mode on this. I'm talking frame-by-frame breakdowns of old interviews, digging through archived photos from the early 90s, analyzing timelines, cross-referencing tour dates with the alleged conception window. Fans are even doing side-by-side face comparisons. They're zooming in on jawlines, cheekbones, eyebrow structure, ear shapes. Some folks online are claiming they see a resemblance that's impossible to ignore. Others say it's reaching, but the conversation, it's loud, and it's not going away. Reports claim that Jay-Z's legal team has fought DNA testing for years, not months, years. They've allegedly argued jurisdiction issues, privacy rights, statute of limitations, you name it, every legal angle you can imagine to avoid that test. And again, people are asking why. If you're innocent, if this claim is baseless, if this is just someone trying to shake you down for money, wouldn't you want to take that test? Wouldn't you want to publicly clear your name and move on? But it hasn't happened. And now a judge is reportedly forcing the issue. This isn't just TMZ speculation anymore. This is court documentation, legal momentum, a system that's saying, answer the question. The silence has been deafening for over a decade, but July 18 might be the day the silence finally breaks. And let's keep it real. This isn't just about one man and one claim. This is about a brand, a legacy, a carefully constructed image of family, loyalty, and success that's worth billions. If this cracks, the fallout won't just be personal, it'll be financial, cultural, historical. We're talking about one of the most powerful figures in music history potentially facing a truth he allegedly spent 30 years burying. Fans are already saying it. This isn't gossip, this is a reckoning. And honestly, the timing of all of this is wild too. Just when you think the drama in hip-hop couldn't get any messier, this story resurfaces with more legal weight than ever before. It's like every few years this claim pops back up, but it always got quietly pushed aside. Settlements were rumored, NDAs were whispered about, legal teams would swoop in and the story would disappear for another year or two. But this time feels different. This time, there's a judge involved, a deadline, a public spotlight that's too bright to ignore. And the internet? They're not letting this go. People are screenshotting everything, archiving every update, making sure this doesn't get memory hold like before. Because if there's one thing the internet loves, it's holding powerful people accountable when they try to duck and dodge. And right now, Jay-Z looks like he's running out of places to hide. The clock is ticking. July 18 is coming fast, and the whole world is watching to see what happens next. Will he finally take that test? Will his legal team find another loophole? Or will this be the moment everything we thought we knew about Jay-Z's past comes crashing down? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, this story is far from over. Now let's get into the motive and the backstory, because this is where everything starts clicking into place. And trust me, once you see the full picture, you'll understand why this situation is so explosive. We gotta go back to the early 1990s. Jay-Z wasn't Jay-Z yet. He was Sean Carter, a hustler from Marcy Projects trying to break into an industry that didn't want him. He was grinding, moving between cities, doing shows in basements and small clubs, meeting people, networking, surviving. This was the era before Rockefeller, before Reasonable Doubt dropped, back in 1996 when everything changed. This was the hungry years. According to the allegations that have been circulating for over a decade, this is the window when everything allegedly happened. The accuser's late mother claimed she met Jay-Z during this period, and not just a casual meet and greet. Reports say there was sustained contact, time spent together, a relationship, however brief, that allegedly resulted in a pregnancy. Now, here's where it gets really uncomfortable. The mother was allegedly a teenager at the time. Let that sink in for a second. If the claims are true, we're not just talking about a secret child. We're talking about a situation with serious legal and moral implications. Underage contact, a power dynamic that was already unbalanced, and a pregnancy that allegedly got covered up before Jay's career ever took off. Supporters of the accuser say this wasn't just a messy breakup or a misunderstanding. They say this was containment, a deliberate effort to make sure this story never saw the light of day. Because even back then, even when Jay was still unknown, people around him allegedly knew he was going to be big. And a teenage pregnancy scandal? That could have derailed everything before it even started. So what happened next? According to the accuser's version of events, contact was cut off completely. The mother was allegedly left to raise the child on her own. Another man's name got put on the birth certificate, possibly as a cover, Possibly because that man genuinely believed he was the father. But years later, that man took a DNA test. And the results? Not the father. So his name got removed. Now you've got a child with no legal father, a mother who stood by her story until she passed away, and a man who allegedly refuses to take the one test that could settle this once and for all. The accuser himself has been vocal about this for years, especially online. And here's the thing, he's not asking for money. At least that's what he says publicly. He says he doesn't want fame. He doesn't want a payout. He just wants answers. He wants acknowledgement. He wants to look his own kids in the eye and tell them the truth about where they come from. That hits different than your typical paternity shakedown, right? Because usually these cases are about child support or inheritance. But this dude is saying, I just want you to admit I exist. And think about the psychological weight of that. Growing up knowing your mother swore up and down that one of the most successful men in music history is your father, but he won't even look at you, won't even take a test, won't even acknowledge the possibility. Meanwhile, you're watching him build a perfect family image with someone else, watching him get celebrated as a husband, a father, a role model. And you're sitting there like, what about me? That kind of rejection doesn't just hurt, it breaks people. And supporters of the accuser say that's exactly what Jay-Z allegedly wanted, to break the story, to break the momentum, to make it go away through sheer silence and legal power. Because if you ignore something long enough, if you bury it deep enough, if you make it hard enough to pursue, most people give up. Most people don't have the resources or the stamina to fight a billionaire for a decade. But this man didn't give up, and now he's got something he didn't have before: legal traction, a judge who's willing to listen, a deadline that puts pressure on Jay-Z's camp in a way they allegedly haven't felt in years, and the internet backing him up, amplifying his voice, refusing to let this story fade into obscurity again. Now let's talk about motive from Jay-Z's side. Why would someone fight a DNA test for over 10 years if they're innocent? The public answer from his camp has always been about privacy, legal jurisdiction, protecting his family from harassment. But people aren't buying that anymore. Because privacy is one thing, a decade of legal warfare is another. That's not privacy, that's desperation. That's someone allegedly trying to run out the clock, hoping the accuser runs out of money, runs out of energy, or just disappears. And here's the thing, if this story is true, the damage isn't just personal, it's institutional. We're talking about brand deals with companies that pride themselves on family values. We're talking about partnerships with corporations that can't afford to be associated with scandal. We're talking about a legacy that's been carefully curated for 30 years, suddenly getting rewritten. That's not just embarrassing, that's a financial disaster waiting to happen. So the motive to keep this buried, it's not hard to understand. Whether it's true or false, the allegation alone is dangerous. But fighting it for this long, that makes people think there's something to hide. And that's where Jay-Z's team allegedly miscalculated. Because the harder you fight, the guiltier you look. And right now, the optics are terrible. Put all that together, the timeline, the alleged underage contact, the decade of legal resistance, the emotional testimony from the accuser, the judge finally stepping in, and you've got the perfect recipe for a scandal that could rewrite hip-hop history. This isn't just tea, this is a potential earthquake. But here's the part that really hits different, and it's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Because when we focus on the celebrity, the scandal, the legal drama, we forget about the actual person at the center of this. The man who says he's been ignored his entire life. This isn't some random clout chaser. This is a 32-year-old man who grew up without a father, who watched his mother struggle, who allegedly asked questions his whole childhood and got the same answer every time. Your father is Jay-Z, and he wants nothing to do with you. Imagine carrying that weight. Imagine going to school, seeing other kids with dads, and knowing yours is out there, but he chose silence. He's talked about this publicly, about how it destroyed his childhood, how it haunted his teenage years, how it followed him into adulthood, and now into fatherhood himself. He's got kids now, and they're asking him the same questions he asked his mother. Who's my grandfather? And what's he supposed to say? That grandpa is one of the richest, most famous men alive, but he pretends you don't exist. That's trauma, generational trauma, and it doesn't matter how much money Jay-Z has or how many Grammys are on his shelf. You can't buy your way out of that kind of pain. You can't lawyer your way out of a child's broken heart. And his mother? She's gone now, passed away, still standing by her story, still saying Jay-Z was the father, still waiting for acknowledgement that never came. She never got closure. She never got an apology. She never even got a conversation, just silence, cold, calculated legal silence. The accuser has said publicly, I can take embarrassment, I can handle being wrong, but I can't take being ignored. And that line hits hard, because it's not about pride, it's not about money, it's about being seen, about being treated like a human being instead of a problem to be managed by a legal team. And let's keep it real. While this man was growing up fatherless, allegedly wondering if he'd ever get answers, Jay-Z was out here building an empire on the image of loyalty and family, rapping about protecting what's yours, about being a man of your word, about legacy. And the irony, if these allegations are true, he allegedly abandoned his first legacy before the world even knew his name. That's the part that makes people angry, not just the possibility of a secret child, but the hypocrisy, the idea that someone could preach family values, could build a billion-dollar brand on authenticity while allegedly turning their back on their own blood. That's the kind of contradiction that doesn't just damage a reputation, it destroys it. So while the legal battle plays out, while the internet debates and speculates, while Jay-Z's team allegedly scrambles to find another delay tactic, there's a man out there just waiting for the one thing he's wanted his entire life. Not money, not fame, just the truth. And maybe, just maybe, this July 18th deadline is finally going to give it to him. Now let's dig even deeper into the evidence, because there's layers to this that people aren't talking about enough. And when you start connecting the dots, the picture gets even more uncomfortable for Jay-Z's camp. First, let's talk about the court filings. Multiple reports claim that Jay-Z's legal team has argued for years that he cannot be compelled to take a DNA test. They've allegedly used every legal loophole imaginable: jurisdiction arguments, statute of limitations defenses, privacy protections. They've allegedly tried to get the case dismissed on technicalities more than anyone can count. And every time it looked like the case was dead, it came back, like a zombie lawsuit that refuses to stay buried. Why does that matter? Because in paternity cases, DNA testing is usually the first step, not the last resort. Courts want definitive answers. They don't want years of speculation and legal warfare. They want a test, a result, and a resolution. So the fact that this case has dragged on for over a decade without that test happening, that's not normal. That's not standard legal procedure. That's someone allegedly fighting with everything they've got to avoid that moment of truth. And let's talk about the sealed proceedings. Multiple sources claim that parts of this case have been sealed, meaning the public doesn't have access to certain documents, testimonies, or evidence. Now, sealing a case can happen for legitimate reasons, protecting minors, sensitive information, privacy concerns, but it also makes people suspicious because when you can't see what's being discussed behind closed doors, your mind fills in the blanks. And right now, people's minds are filling in some dark blanks. There's also been chatter online, unconfirmed but persistent, that private settlement offers were allegedly floated at some point. The idea being, take this money, sign this NDA, and make this go away forever. But according to rumors, those talks allegedly fell apart. Maybe the number wasn't high enough, maybe the accuser refused to sign away his right to speak, maybe Jay-Z's team changed their mind. We don't know, but the fact that settlement talks were even rumored, that tells you this case has been taken seriously behind the scenes, even if it's been dismissed publicly. Now, let's get into the online investigation, because this is where things get wild. Fans online have turned into full-blown forensic analysts. They're not just talking about this casually, they're building timelines. They're pulling up archived interviews from the early 90s, where Jay-Z talks about his lifestyle back then. They're cross-referencing tour schedules, mixtape release dates, known relationships, public appearances. They're trying to map out where Jay was, who he was with, and whether the timeline matches the accuser's claims. And guess what? A lot of people are saying the timeline does match. Then there's the physical comparison. And look, this part is tricky because resemblance is subjective. But people online have been doing side-by-side photo comparisons for years. They're looking at facial structure, jawline, nose shape, eye spacing, smile, even mannerisms in the few videos where the accuser has appeared publicly. Some folks swear they see it. They're saying the resemblance is undeniable. Others say it's confirmation bias, people seeing what they want to see, but the conversation is happening, and it's loud. There's also the question of why this story keeps resurfacing. If it was baseless, if it was just a shakedown, wouldn't it have died years ago? Wouldn't the accuser have given up when the legal bills piled up and the public attention faded? But he didn't. He kept pushing, kept filing, kept speaking out. That kind of persistence usually means one of two things. Either he's absolutely convinced he's right, or he's got evidence that keeps him motivated. And based on what we know, it seems like it's the former, or maybe both. Let's also talk about the people around this story. The accuser isn't alone. He's got supporters, family members, people who knew his late mother, people who allegedly remember the relationship between her and Jay-Z back in the day. Some of these people have spoken out online, backing his claims, saying they were there, they saw it, they remember. Now, are these people credible? That's for a court to decide. But the fact that there's a network of people who allegedly corroborate parts of this story, that's not nothing. That's not just one person making wild claims. That's multiple voices saying the same thing. And then there's the elephant in the room, the fact that Jay-Z himself has never publicly addressed this. Not in an interview, not in a statement, not even a vague denial through a spokesperson. Just silence. His team has allegedly handled everything through legal channels, but he hasn't said a word. And for someone who's built a career on controlling his narrative, on addressing beef head-on, on speaking his truth through his music, that silence is loud. People are asking, if it's not true, why not just say that? Why not go on the record, look into a camera, and say, this is false and here's why? But that hasn't happened, and every day that passes without a denial, people get more suspicious. So when you add it all up, the decade of legal resistance, the sealed court documents, the rumored settlement talks, the matching timelines, the physical resemblance claims, the corroborating witnesses, and the deafening silence from Jay-Z himself, you start to see why this story won't die. Because it's not just smoke, there might actually be fire, and July 18th might be the day we all find out for sure. Now, this whole situation gets even crazier when you realize it's not happening in a vacuum. There's a whole ecosystem of related drama, side players, and internet chaos that's making this story even more explosive. Let me break down some of the wildest angles people are talking about right now. First up, 50 Cent. And of course 50 Cent is involved, because when is he not involved in hip-hop drama? 50 has been low-key, actually, scratch that, high-key throwing shade at Jay-Z for years. And this paternity situation, he's been all over it, posting memes, dropping cryptic captions, allegedly asking questions publicly that Jay's team refuses to answer. Now, does 50 have inside information? Probably not. But does he love stirring the pot and watching powerful people squirm? Absolutely. And his platform is massive. When he posts about this, millions of people see it. Millions of people start asking their own questions. And that kind of public pressure, that's dangerous for someone trying to keep a story buried. Then there's the timing, because this paternity case resurfacing right now in 2025 comes at a moment when hip-hop is already under a microscope. We've seen major investigations into other industry figures. We've seen allegations, arrests, lawsuits, exposés. The culture is in a moment of reckoning, and fans are done giving legends a pass just because they're legends. People want accountability. They want transparency. They want the truth, no matter how ugly it is. So Jay-Z trying to stay silent and hope this blows over, that strategy doesn't work anymore. The internet doesn't forget, and the internet doesn't forgive. There's also been whispers, and these are unconfirmed, so take this with a grain of salt, that other people in the industry have allegedly known about this situation for years, that it's been an open secret in certain circles, that people close to Jay-Z allegedly knew but stayed quiet out of loyalty, fear, or NDAs. And now that the case is getting legal traction, some of those people are allegedly getting nervous. Because if this story fully breaks, if Jay-Z is forced to take that test and the results come back positive, everyone who helped keep the secret is going to be under scrutiny too. This isn't just about Jay anymore. It's about who knew, who helped, and who stayed silent while a man allegedly spent 32 years begging for acknowledgement. And let's talk about the fans, because the fan response to this has been split. You've got the die-hard Jay-Z supporters saying this is all lies, clout chasing, a setup to tear down a black billionaire. They're pointing to his legacy, his marriage to Beyonce, his philanthropy, his business empire. They're saying he's being targeted because he's successful. And look, that perspective isn't entirely without merit. Successful black men do get targeted unfairly. That's a fact. But here's the thing, that doesn't mean every accusation is false. And the longer Jay-Z fights this without just taking the test, the harder it is for even his most loyal fans to defend him. On the flip side, you've got people who've been waiting for this moment. People who always thought Jay's perfect image was too good to be true. People who've questioned his past, his come-up, his relationships, and now they feel vindicated. They're saying, "I told you," and spreading this story everywhere. Social media is a battlefield right now. Every post about Jay-Z gets flooded with comments about the paternity case. Every new photo of him and Beyonce gets replies like, "But what about your other son?" It's relentless, and it's not going away. There's also the Beyonce angle, and people are very curious about how she's handling this. Because if these allegations are true, that means Jay-Z allegedly had this secret before they even got together. Which means either she knew and accepted it, or she didn't know and is finding out the same time as everyone else. Either scenario is messy, and the fact that she's been completely silent, not addressing it in interviews, not referencing it in music, not even subtly acknowledging it, that's interesting, because Beyonce is not someone who stays quiet when her family is threatened, so her silence is either strategic or telling. And then there's the broader conversation about accountability in hip-hop. Fans are starting to connect dots between this case and other situations where powerful men allegedly used their influence to bury uncomfortable truths. They're asking how many other stories are out there? How many other people have been silenced, paid off, legally threatened into submission? This case is becoming symbolic of something bigger than just Jay-Z. It's becoming a referendum on power, privilege, and whether anyone is truly untouchable. Old industry insiders are suddenly remembering things too. People who were around in the early 90s are allegedly dropping hints in podcasts, interviews, social media posts. Nothing concrete, nothing actionable, but enough to make you wonder, enough to add fuel to the fire. And in the age of the internet, even the smallest hint can become a wildfire. So yeah, This story has layers. It's not just a paternity case, it's a cultural moment, and everyone's watching to see what happens next. And this story is still unfolding, with way bigger implications than just one man, one case, one DNA test. What we're seeing here is a potential shift in how we view legacy, power, and accountability in hip-hop. Because if this case cracks open, if that test happens and the results are positive, the fallout isn't just personal, it's institutional. Let's start with the brand. Jay-Z isn't just a rapper, he's a corporation. He's got deals with luxury brands, tech companies, streaming platforms, sports leagues. He's got partnerships with entities that pride themselves on image, values, and public perception. If this story breaks in the wrong way, those partnerships are at risk. Because corporations don't want controversy. They don't want their brand associated with scandal, especially one involving alleged underage contact and a decades-long cover-up. They'll drop him fast if the PR damage gets too severe. Then there's the Roc Nation empire. Management deals, artist rosters, business ventures. All of that is built on Jay's reputation as a savvy, trustworthy, visionary leader. But if his personal life gets exposed as a lie, if people start questioning his character, his integrity, his honesty, that affects everyone under the Roc Nation umbrella. Artists might start distancing themselves. Business partners might rethink their contracts. The whole operation could take a hit. And let's talk about the cultural legacy. Jay-Z is often mentioned in the same breath as Biggie, Pac, Nas, the legends. He's in the conversation for greatest rapper of all time. But legacies are fragile. They can be rewritten overnight. If this story goes the wrong way, every future conversation about Jay will include an asterisk. Every accolade will come with a but. And in hip-hop, where authenticity's everything, that's a death sentence for your legacy. There's also the family dynamic. The Carters have built their brand on unity, power couple, black excellence, family goals. But if it comes out that Jay allegedly hid a whole child for 30 years, that image shatters. And it's not just about public perception, it's about Beyonce, their kids, their extended families. That kind of revelation doesn't just damage a brand, it damages real relationships, real people, real lives. The bigger conversation here is about power and silence. For decades, powerful men in entertainment have been able to bury uncomfortable truths, pay people off, tie them up in legal battles they can't afford, outlast them, outlawyer them, make them disappear. But the internet changed that. Social media changed that. You can't bury stories as easily anymore. You can't just throw money at a problem and make it vanish. People are watching. People are recording. People are remembering. And they're not letting the powerful off the hook like they used to. So, if Jay-Z is forced to take this test, if the results are positive, if this man gets the acknowledgement he's been begging for, it sends a message. It says that no one is untouchable. It says that money and lawyers can only protect you for so long. It says that the truth, eventually, always finds a way out. And that's a message that a lot of powerful people in the industry do not want sent. Because if it can happen to Jay-Z, it can happen to anyone. This case is bigger than hip-hop. It's about justice. It's about accountability. It's about whether we're willing to hold our heroes to the same standards we hold everyone else. And right now, the world is watching to see if the system finally forces one of the most powerful men in music to answer a question he's allegedly been running from for 30 years. So here we are. July 18th is coming. The clock is ticking. And the most dangerous question isn't even, is it true anymore? The most dangerous question is, why not just end this? Why not walk into a lab, take the test, get the results, and shut this whole thing down if you're innocent? Why drag this out for over a decade? Why spend millions on legal fees fighting something that could be resolved in 48 hours? That's what people can't wrap their heads around, because the math doesn't math. If the test comes back negative, Jay-Z is cleared completely, forever. The accuser loses all credibility. The story dies. The internet moves on. His legacy stays intact. So why wouldn't he do that? Why wouldn't he walk into a lab, take the test, and get the results, and shut this whole thing down if you're innocent? Why drag this out for over a decade? Why spend millions on legal fees fighting something that could be resolved in 48 hours? That's what people can't wrap their heads around, because the math doesn't math. If the test comes back negative, Jay-Z is cleared, completely, forever. The accuser loses all credibility. The story dies. The internet moves on. His legacy stays intact. So why wouldn't he do that? Why wouldn't he take the W and embarrass everyone who doubted him? Unless he can't. Unless the test won't come back negative. Unless the truth is worse than the rumor. And that's the speculation that's driving people crazy right now, because every day Jay doesn't take that test, every legal maneuver his team pulls to delay or dismiss, every silent month that passes, it looks worse. It looks like guilt. It looks like someone who knows what the results will be and is desperately trying to avoid that moment. Insiders, and again, this is unconfirmed, just whispers and rumors from people allegedly close to the situation, insiders say the reason this has gone on so long is because Jay's team genuinely doesn't know how to win. They can't make the accuser go away, they can't disprove the claims without the test, and they allegedly can't risk the test because of what it might reveal. So they're stuck. Trapped in a legal limbo that gets more expensive and more damaging the longer it lasts. And here's the wildest part. Even if Jay somehow dodges this deadline, even if his lawyers find another loophole, even if the case gets dismissed on some technicality, the damage is done. The story is out. The internet has latched onto it. It's part of his narrative now, whether he likes it or not. Every time someone Googles his name, this case is going to come up. Every time he does an interview, someone's going to ask. Every time he drops a new project, the comments are going to mention it. You can't unring this bell. So what happens on July 18th? Honestly, nobody knows. Maybe Jay's team files another motion to extend. Maybe they try to settle out of court one last time. Maybe they finally agree to the test. Or maybe, just maybe, the test happens, the results come back, and we get the answer everyone's been waiting for. And if that answer is positive, hip-hop will never be the same. The headlines will be nuclear, the fallout will be catastrophic, and Jay-Z's legacy will be rewritten overnight. But if the answer is negative, if he's cleared, then this was all a 10-year nightmare for nothing. The accuser loses everything. Jay gets vindicated, and everyone who pushed this story looks foolish. But even then, people will ask why it took so long, why he fought so hard, why he didn't just do this in 2010 and save everyone the trouble. Either way, July 18th is going to be a moment, and the whole world is going to be watching. So there it is, the case that could end Jay-Z's empire, the DNA test he allegedly spent 30 years avoiding, the deadline that might finally force the truth into the light. July 18 is coming, and whether you think he's guilty or innocent, whether you believe the accuser or think this is all a setup, you cannot deny that this story is one of the biggest bombshells hip-hop has ever seen. This isn't just gossip. This isn't just internet speculation. This is a court case, a legal deadline. A man who says he's been ignored his entire life finally getting a chance at answers. And a legend who might be forced to confront a past he allegedly tried to bury. So here's what I need you to do. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think Jay-Z is going to take that test? Or do you think his legal team is going to find another way out? Do you believe the accuser's story? Or do you think this is all part of a bigger agenda to tear down successful black men? I want to hear everything, because this conversation is happening whether Jay likes it or not, and your voice matters. Make sure you smash that like button if you want to see more deep dives like this. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single update. Because trust me, this story is about to get even crazier. More details are going to drop, more evidence might surface, more people might start talking, and when it does, you're going to want to be here first. Share this video with everyone you know, because this is the kind of story that needs to be talked about. This is the kind of moment that defines an era. And if July 18 goes the way some people think it will, we're going to look back on this as the day everything changed. I appreciate every single one of you for rocking with me on this channel, for trusting me to bring you the real stories, the deep dives, the uncomfortable truths that other people won't touch. This is why we're here. This is why we do this. Stay locked in, stay curious, and remember, in the age of the internet, nothing stays buried forever. The truth always finds a way out. Always. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.